Aloha, everybody. This is Dr. BethAnne, and this is September's Intuitive You, my monthly intuition letter where we explore topics related to intuition and spirituality and the soul and all sorts of good things like that. So this month we're talking about how the soul speaks. And that's kind of a weighty topic to choose to even begin to shine light on. And yet I felt it was really relevant at this time because there is a mass spiritual awakening going on the planet in all sorts of varying degrees. And we're seeing it in world events. We're seeing it in what's happening in the environment. We're seeing it in what's happening in our various countries and everything that's affecting us. And we're seeing people like really sit up and start to pay attention and ask the question of like, why am I here and how can I serve? And really become aware that there's deeper cosmic forces at work and that there's a deeper meaning behind all of this, and people are wanting to turn inwards and wanting to really be in a more authentic space and be in that deeper meaning. I know a lot of people that I've been talking to are saying, I feel called to go inwards or feel called to spiritual path in a way that I haven't before. And how do I even go about doing that? So I thought, well, let's talk about how the soul speaks in this month's issue, because the soul doesn't speak the way the mind speaks. And often what happens in a spiritual awakening is something begins to cause us to wake up. Usually it's a crisis. It might be a health crisis, a relationship crisis. It might be a major loss. It might be a crisis of identity where all of a sudden we feel like we don't know who we are anymore. There's usually some form of spiritual crisis that precipitates it. And right now, like, the world's basically been in spiritual crisis for the year of 2020. So there's a lot of disruption of consciousness going on. And in that disruption of consciousness, what happens is we're like knocked out of how we usually see things because we're forced to see it differently, and all this new space opens up. And that's when these old structures and belief systems that we created will often start to crumble or fall apart or rearrange before us. And then we feel even more in crisis because our old coping devices, our old ways of being, our understanding the world aren't working for us. And we feel disoriented. And often as we're feeling those things, we start to have experiences of synchronicity or feeling like the universe is speaking to us. And we start to wonder like, wow, am I going crazy? And I am delighted when people describe these things to me to say, oh no, you're awesome. You're great. This is good news. This is your soul speaking to you. So listen up, and here's how to tap in. So how does the soul speak to us? We know our mind speaks through logic and rational thought and kind of sequential thought, right? X happened. Here's my understanding of it. This is what I've learned, and here's what I need to do to move on. But the soul's process is really cyclical. It really is intuitive. It really moves in spirals. Our soul will circle around something again and again, pulling in new pieces that we need into that spiral so that we can travel deeper down into ourselves. The soul speaks through symbolism. It speaks through synchronicity. It speaks through patterns in the world and directing our attention to something like a number sequence or a concurrence that happens over and over again. And if you're wondering, but wait, I thought that was my spirit guides, my answer to that is, since our soul is our divine eternal part of ourself that's always connected to spirit, it can be both. Your soul's the one who's receiving these messages from your spirit guides and saying, pay attention to 1111. There's meaning here. Your soul is the part of you that will resonate when you see the cloud in the shape of a heart and you're thinking of your loved one who passed, and you just feel this thing inside of you and you're like, I think it's a message from them. Like, that's the part of you that's already dialed into spirit, that's always communicating to your deeper self, to your higher self, and to the spiritual unseen universe around you. So that's how I kind of answer that question. I think it's a multi-dimensional answer, and it's not as linear as like, that's a guide. I'm like, oh no, it's all of the above, and the soul really speaks through feelings and resonance and taking the ingredients in our life and using those to offer us rites of passage to our deeper self. So when things fall apart in our life, especially if we've just had a spiritual awakening and we're thinking, wow, I'm really getting aligned and I'm doing my work and like things should really be getting in flow now, and all of a sudden things fall apart even more and we're like, what's going on? Where the F's my flow? I thought I was aligned. What that often is your soul saying, yeah, and I'm getting you even more aligned. I want you to be so deeply rooted in your truth that like all your roots are firmly planted in the ground, not where you still have these old roots that aren't as deep and that aren't as deeply planted in truth. I'm going to uproot you and like really transplant you. And that's really a beautiful way to think about it when you're on the spiritual journey and you feel like your soul is speaking to you, you feel like the universe is speaking to you, but you don't understand what's going on and it doesn't add up logically to you. A beautiful metaphor is to think about the fact that prior to where you're at now, it's like you were, we'll say, a beautiful potted plant. I'm seeing a picture behind me on the wall of a little plant in a pot, and you were this little potted plant. And you were bopping along and you were doing great, taking up space in that pot. You were blooming beautifully, like good job you, good plant. And your soul said, it's time to go bigger. I no longer fit this pot. And so it started to grow a little bit and it started to kind of like bust the pot apart. And it started to like pop up and maybe sprout out. Maybe you crack the pot and there's like a little tendril sprouting out. And usually that's when our attention, like we're not paying attention in our life when that happens, when stuff starts to crack. And we say, okay, I'm listening. I know I need to change. And we start to make these changes on the surface and we think things are going to line up. And it's like our soul is saying, awesome, I'm so glad you're listening to me, but now I'm going to put you in an even bigger pot, or maybe I'm going to move you into a garden bed, or better yet, just some soil so you can become a whole new creation. And you're going to need completely new soil to do that. That's what's going on. That's why we often go through crisis and loss of identity and shifts in identity and not understanding ourselves when we go through soul growth and soul change, because our soul will use those circumstances to pull in every message to us through our intuition, our senses, our inner knowing, all of that to say, like, pay attention, it's time for you to shift. And I thought it might be fun today to read a passage from my upcoming book, Revelations of the Sky, that explores kind of my theory and ideas on another way that our soul speaks, because it can be hard to put these concepts into words and like really break them down into teaching. So this is a narrative that I wrote about my own experience and kind of how I think about what our soul does when we begin to say, yes, I want to live more soulfully. So this is called butterfly effect. And it starts out with the definition. It is a property of chaotic systems, such as the atmosphere, by which small changes and initial conditions can lead to large-scale and unpredictable variations in the future state of the system, from Merriam-Webster Dictionary. It starts with the yes. The yes is usually said in a quiet space on a lonely night when you're listening deep and you decide you can no longer ignore the insistence of the voice within. You whisper your yes out into the stars, wondering if anyone is listening. Even though you may be terrified of what your yes may mean, you feel your heart nod in resounding accord. You begin to allow yourself the possibility of more, the possibility of your possibility, and what might happen if you let go and surrender into unfolding. Slowly, perhaps quickly, things begin to shift. You begin to see space and movement where you perceived none before. The more space you find, the more you allow yourself to unfold and let go as you feel and grow into your possibility. You might even have to shake up your life in order to do so. Releasing, recanting, resetting, relocating, your heart thrums stronger with each brave shake. Except the path doesn't look as you expect. You thought you were heading right, then the universe gives you a left. You thought you were heading up, but instead you wind up falling down. You thought you were walking forward, then you find yourself seemingly stepping back. You keep on saying yes, moving slowly, moving sideways, still moving towards. What you may or may not realize is that when you gave your yes in that quiet space long ago, your yes became an answer of yes to spirit, yes to your higher self, yes to your soul. Yes, you will open yourself to the change process that will allow you to become your most authentic expression of self. Your yes sets into motion a cycle of events like the butterfly effect, each one cascading into the next, impacting, tipping, and affecting the entire ecosystem that is you, offering you the exact ingredients you need to become a more authentic expression. The ingredients aren't what you expected. Some of them are tricksters, things disguised as something seemingly bad, so they trick you into new learning and growth. But as you begin to look back over the rocky road you've walked, crawled, and swam to make it this far, you begin to see when you mix the ingredients together, you've been given exactly what you needed to experience, expand, and know. Your yes created the butterfly effect, where your soul and the universe conspired in order to bring into material form whatever you needed for highest growth. As you keep stepping forward on the path you're creating with each new step of courage, you realize how far you've truly traveled from what you knew then to what you now know. You realize you are doing it. You are staking claim to your life, your heart, your dreams, embodying a fuller expression of soul. Our soul is here to grow. We are here to grow as souls. So if you wonder, is my soul speaking to me? And other forms of that question might be, what does the universe want in me? Is spirit speaking to me? What are my guides saying? God, are you there? I feel like you want something. Like, those are all kind of forms of the question, is my soul speaking to me? All you have to do is ask yourself, will this expand me? Will it make me uncomfortable? Is this growing me? Does something in my heart kind of light up or get excited or open up, even if it's something where you're like, oh my gosh, could I? Does something open in me or something feel like it gets a little bit bigger? And if the answer to that is yes, then it is your soul. If the answer to that is I don't know, then stay with it. Just keep asking the question and know that through the process of asking the question and just living your life, you will live the answers and you will find what you need. And if the answer to that is no, it's contracting me, it's making me feel smaller, then it's probably not your soul speaking, because our soul invites us to expand and invites us to take the leap, to do the big thing, to do the scary thing, to become more real. And it will use any means of language necessary to do that in order to invite us into a fuller expression. This has been September's edition of Intuitive You. This is my monthly newsletter if you're happening just to catch this on YouTube. And if you'd like to join us, you can go to BethAnneKW.com and sign up. The newsletter itself has the video, but also it always has writing, and it has a discovery question and an intuitive activity, and it's really fun. It's like a dose of joy in your inbox once a month. And my new book, Revelations of the Sky, will be out in mid-September, so stay tuned for that. And wishing everybody a beautiful September. 2020 is the year that we thought we were going up, and instead we're seemingly going down, but we're really not. Trust your soul. It knows what it's doing, and it will absolutely guide you through all the roller coaster twists and turns that have been coming our way, and bring you into a fuller expression of who you're meant to be in this world. With that, I'm sending so much love and light to everybody, and I will see you next month.